How's it hanging, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to tell you about 5 motorcycles that I have changed my mind on. The first one might surprise you a little bit. It's the Suzuki GSXR 750. Now, this is a motorcycle that I often felt was kind of missing a place in the market, you know? When I started riding about 10 years ago, the 750 was already getting a little long in the tooth, and if y'all can believe it, Suzuki has ran that bike basically unchanged since about 2009, I believe. And what's fascinating with the GSXR 750 is, up until very recently, you would say, what is this bike's place in the market? Why does it exist? Why does Suzuki still make this sort of legacy product of the 750? Because that's really what it is, because the 750 used to be the top dog. It used to be the big, bad racing machine, but then the thousands came out, and Suzuki kept making the 750 as a bit of an homage to its old racing programs, right? Time went on, and now the 600 class is dead. The 1000 class is slowly dying out, I would say, or kind of being bifurcated into incredibly expensive toys for rich guys. Your $40,000 Ducati V4Rs and S1000RRs, those sort of things, right? The 750 has kind of failed upwards, hasn't it? It now slots beautifully in this new category of the not-so-super sports while retaining a traditional inline-4 engine. It's got a darling frame on it and big, juicy power. So the thing basically has the right amount of power, the right amount of ergonomics. It's a proper super sport. It's basically unkillable. I think the price is a little wrong given that it hasn't been updated in a while. However, I think an absolute layup for Suzuki at this point would be to simply update the 750 a little bit, sprinkle on a new TFT display, maybe make the ergonomics maybe not so aggressive, like tune it for street duty, and then that way people will start lumping it in with the R9 and the new KTM RC 990 and all those sorts of bikes. I'm very, very interested to see if Suzuki will take this tack of actually, you know, creating a motorcycle that will fit into the upper end of this not-so-super sport category, or the new generation super sport, as the R9 is now leading the charge in, as the R7 did in 2021. I'm very, very interested to see if we're going to get Suzuki's take on this upper end of the sport category, because the 750 makes awesome power, and so I think they're positioned quite interestingly to make some serious moves. And that's why my opinion on the 750 has changed a lot, because yeah, it used to be so old, outdated, kind of crunchy, kind of old, and people were like, man, like, you know, those who knew, like, big example is Michael Neves over from Motorcycle News, MCN. He, you know, famously loves the 750. He compares like every middleweight sport bike to it, basically, and I think there's good reason for that. That guy knows a lot of what he's talking about, nothing but respect to him. And so, yeah, that's one bike I've changed my mind on a lot. The second bike I've changed my mind on a lot recently is the Honda Grom. I think the Honda Grom actually provides way more of an interesting riding experience that I previously had given it credit for back in the day. So I bought 2 Honda Groms back in 2020, and I adventurized them with spite. I scramblerized another one of them. We did unspeakable, horrible things to the Groms. And ultimately, I had this opinion that I was like, well, it's a bit of a novelty, a bit of a toy, kind of a silly little bike that, you know, anyone could really enjoy, but I don't really get why you'd really want one in your garage, right? Because I'm like, well, it's not too serious of a motorcycle. But that's exactly where these little mini bikes excel, is in not being too serious. You know, having a tiny mini bike in your garage allows you to have a very different riding experience than you would on a normal motorcycle. And to me, it's really no different than if you were to go out and get yourself a dual sport, right? You're gonna do really different things with a dual sport than you would an adventure bike or a naked sport bike or a leader bike, right? On a leader bike, you go rip up the highways with your buddies and hit a $150 every time you ride, right? On a dual sport, you're gonna stop and smell the scenery, you're gonna go off little offshoots and explore around and just do silly stuff. Where the Grom really excels, it kind of splits the difference in that it has that low stakes exploratory quality that a dual sport has. It's not capable off-road, obviously, but if you live in a giant suburban area, a Grom actually makes a lot of sense because you're able to head out for a low stakes ride, go meet up with a bunch of your buddies, mob around for a little bit. It is cheap as hell to buy and own, and that's a really cool feature about it too. You're not going to spend much money on a Grom. Modifying it, repairing it, riding the crap out of it. You can just do anything with a Grom. And I think that's really special. The other secret power that a Grom has that I never considered because I never thought about this type of riding is it has an incredible ability to become a very serious low-stakes training tool for stunt riding. Now, I am actually extremely interested in that element of a Grom's capabilities. I have been pining for a low-stakes tiny motorcycle for a while. You guys have seen me on the live stream. I've talked about Vespas, talked about mini bikes. I'm like, man, something's gonna give here because it's really the last frontier for me with motorcycling. I've done the super fast stuff and I'm excited to try something new and something different. And the Grom really fits the ticket. And once I talked to one of my buddies who is big in the stunt game, he was like, dude, get a Grom. It'll teach you everything you need to learn. And I realized, I'm like, oh my God, the Grom is basically the Ninja 400 of stunt bikes. I started doing more research on this and I was like, oh my God, these bikes are perfect to learn how to stunt on. And I never considered that back when I had the Groms in 2020 because I didn't think about stunt riding. I didn't do anything with stunt riding. And so I was kind of like, man, so this motorcycle is extremely good at teaching you something, and I'm super interested in that. So yeah, I really changed my opinion on the Groms too, and now I'm actively looking at and considering getting one to just goof around with as a little mini bike training tool to learn proper wheelies on and stunts and stoppies and all those sort of things. So really interesting little machine. The third bike I'd like to talk about today, I've mentioned this before, but I want to give it even more credit where credit's due. It is the Harley Sportster. Specifically, I guess it doesn't really matter what year because they made them the same for so long. Now, when a manufacturer makes a motorcycle the same for that amount of time, I think it had a 20-something year production run of basically being untouched. It starts to fail upwards because it provides an extremely unique riding experience. I remember before I had ever ridden a Harley Sportster, I had zero interest. I was like, I do not care about some fat, lazy, slow, silly bike like that. It's not what I'm interested in at all. And then when we got the Harley Sportster in 2020, that Spite actually ended up putting a 1275 kit on, I was kind of thinking, man, this thing kind of rips. This is a really unique experience because it is just so darn ridiculous and fast for what it is. And just that air-cooled, grumbly V-twin, you know, all these years of riding the desert sled made me realize what a special platform that actually is. And I'm kind of sad that they've done away with it because it's a really cool motorcycle, man. You can do a lot with those bikes and you can really have a ton of fun with them. And the modifying scene is just insane on that motorcycle. So bone stock, you know, you look at a 1200 or an 883 and they don't do a whole lot. But then you go out and you modify them, you get a little bit of going on them, you know, you maybe put on some different mods, different parts, and that is pretty freaking sweet what you can turn those bikes into, man. And it kind of got me thinking, I'm like, I totally understand it now from like the builder's perspective. The Sportster is a perfect blank canvas motorcycle, and I'm really interested in that motorcycle as that blank canvas. Now, am I going to build a Sportster? Definitely not. I have way too many projects and way too many things going on, and I don't really want to spend time building a Sportster necessarily. However, I think that the Sportster is a really interesting motorcycle from that perspective. It's aged really well. It is one of the few Harleys that I think still has a lot to offer, honestly. It has a lot to offer, a vast array of different types of riders, and you got to give credit where credit's due for that, right? I mean, that is super neat that the Harley Sportster can provide people with so many interesting experiences. I mean, you can build a Sportster to be whatever the heck you want, you know? You can build a crazy hopped up 1275 fire breathing borderline drag racing Sportster, or you could build a Sportster Scrambler. I mean, anything you can imagine has been done with it. And I realized that some of my favorite platforms like the Desert Sled the SV650, just these tried and true Japanese and Italian V-twin style motorcycles have a lot more in common with the Sportster than I ever wanted to admit, really. And I really think that's neat, you know?
This Ninja 500 SE is gonna end up in one of your driveways out there watching this video right now because it's a giveaway bike on YamiNoob.co. Become a member for your very best chance to win. Rack up your entries and assign them towards giveaway bikes as we do them, or hold on to them and then put them towards your extra special spicy bikes that you see in the future. Make sure you become a member on YamiNoob.co for your best chance to win. Don't miss out.
The fourth bike on the list I wanted to talk about today is the Versys 650. Now, I have already repented to the Versys 650. I still think it's incredibly boring. You know, Spite and I actually share an opinion on that, mostly because it's, you know, a bike that we both criticized in that way, and I think he had a whole review on his channel separately too. And look, I understand now that from like a purely functional perspective, the Versys 650 is almost unbeatable. You know, it quite literally is like a Toyota Corolla of the motorcycling world. You know, you just can't really find motorcycles that can offer that much bang for buck with that level of quality, you know. A Versys 650 will run virtually forever. Just ask Ari Henning how many miles has gone down on his Versys 650. It's a platform that is just ridiculously well known and ridiculously bulletproof, and you really got to give credit where credit's due for that, right? And I also think that when you consider the fact that you can get it with hard luggage, some nice features, you know, like bulletproof reliability, like it is punching way above its price point and its class in terms of its features and in terms of what it can do. And for that reason, I get it. Like it's a great motorcycle for that. It is still a skosh too boring for me. I need bikes with a little bit more pizzazz. That's why I ended up with an Aprilia Touareg, right, instead of like a Versys 650 or something like that. I just need something with a little more pep in its step, a little bit more zest, and I think that the Versys lacks in that. But if you don't care about that, and a lot of riders don't, a lot of riders are like, look man, I just want a bike that's gonna do what I want it to do every single day and not give me any problems. The Versys 650 is a fantastic motorcycle for that. You really can't deny how good of a motorcycle the Versys 650 is. Again, for fun on the channel, it's fun to kind of poke fun at it and be like, wow, that bike sucks, you know, nobody should buy it. But ultimately, it is a very tried and true platform and pretty darn good at what it can do. Exploring these roads over here, boys. That looks like a path to somebody's property. I don't think I should go that way. I should go this way. Perfect kind of road to explore on an ADV. If you hit some gravel, hit some bumpy stuff, doesn't matter. And speaking of which, the last motorcycle that I wanted to talk about that I've kind of changed my mind on would be the middleweight adventure category in general. When this category started getting very popular in motorcycling, becoming more of a thing that everybody wanted to do and wanted to try out, I was very skeptical. I was like, oh my god, those bikes don't do anything well. I was very into a highly specialized garage environment. I thought that, you know, if you were a true blue motorcyclist, you'd have 5 different motorcycles and they'd all do extremely specific different things, and you would just have different tools for different jobs. And look, that is definitely, you know, a way to think about motorcycling, but for a lot of people, as I've turned into actually, it's just too much of a hassle to own 5 different bikes. Some people just want 1, maybe 2 motorcycles. And what the ADV bikes do extremely well is that they are very capable in a lot of different environments, right? And so when you have a motorcycle that's very capable in a lot of different environments, that makes it very fun. It makes it very usable. It makes it so that you can commute with it. You can follow your buddies on some twisty road. You can truck down a gravel road. And I had never really given that much credence to the middleweight ADV category and how good they are at just about everything, you know? These really are the new age jack of all trades motorcycles. What we used to think of as scramblers back in the 60s and 70s, as if I was alive back then, but given the historical research I've done on this topic, that's the sort of thing that we used to, you know, do with those bikes. The scramblers, you'd make them a little off-road, do a little bit of everything, right? These bikes genuinely can do a little bit of everything, and it's kind of impressive how good they are at doing that little bit of everything, you know? Like, they genuinely can do quite a bit of work on a bunch of different things, and it's really sweet, man. It is sweet to have a motorcycle that can do that many different things. I totally get it now. Perhaps it took me owning one of these motorcycles to understand that it's a great platform and a really good fit for certain people in certain stages of their life, like I said, who don't want to own a bunch of different motorcycles, as I do not want to own. And I think it's great, you know? It's a really solid platform. It really makes a lot of sense. And so yeah, middleweight adventure bike in a lot of riders' garages make a lot of sense. And maybe you're like me, where you're like, man, I don't want to give into that lifestyle just yet. I really don't. I don't want to go and go after the middleweight ADV bikes like that. And, you know, I really don't think that you should force the issue. If you are the type of rider that, you know, you're dabbing, you know, your feet, let's say, you're dipping a toe into the adventure waters, let it come to you. You don't have to feel forced to do it necessarily. And I don't think you should either. But these bikes have a ton to offer, and I really think that if you don't have space or you don't want many motorcycles, the ADV bikes do a lot. They honestly do. So boys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know down below what you think about those 5 different motorcycles, particularly the Suzuki GSX-R 750. I really think it's in a prime position to fail upwards and be an incredibly good fit in the marketplace. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. I appreciate y'all checking out the video. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch y'all on the next one. See you later. You've made it to the end of another Yami Noob video. Aren't you just a special little cookie? Aren't you just something so great? Aren't you just, look at you, you're just so freaking cute. Why don't you go ahead and click on the next video? Why don't you go ahead, listen, hey, I'm just kidding around. Hey, listen to me. Click on the video.